Hi, my name is Jordan Mitchell-Lane and I'm a junior.
And I'm Maya Klein and I'm a sophomore, and we're both Jewish students here at Inspire. So, as some of you may know, a hurtful anti-Semitic post was made on Instagram last Tuesday by a classmate using Nazi propaganda to pose an opinion about the current pandemic. We don't want to dwell on the specific post here too much, but we would like to use it as an opportunity to create awareness about anti-Semitism, hate, and bigotry within the climate of Inspire. It's vital to realize that anti-Semitism is still thriving in America and feeds off of fear and hate. Listening to Jewish voices and the voices of minorities is critical right now, and understanding what you can do to support minorities and battle bigotry is essential. Anti-Semitism extends to all of us, and it's up to everybody to become allies in the face of prejudice.
We will be talking about very sensitive and upsetting topics such as anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, pogroms, and more. Here's a warning so you can be prepared. Rising anti-Semitism. Although the Holocaust ended 75 years ago and people were chanting never again, anti-Semitism has been noticeably rising since 2017 in America, Canada, France, and Germany, and it is a big problem. Some examples of violent anti-Semitic attacks have been in 2019, a man with a machete wounded 5 inside a rabbi's home during a Hanukkah celebration. In 2018, a man killed 11 people in the Tree of Life synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh, which is the worst killing of Jewish people in American history. In 2019, in Germany, an impassable synagogue door was the only thing that stopped a man from going inside and killing as many Jewish people as he could and live streaming their murders on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year.
So, understanding what it means to be Jewish is an important part of understanding Jewish identity and therefore understanding our intergenerational trauma. The unique thing about being Jewish that differs from other religions or cultures is that you can be religiously Jewish or Jewish by heritage. For example, my parents are Jewish and their parents are Jewish, so that makes me a Jew. Although I don't partake in many Jewish holidays, religious or otherwise, I'm still born with this identity and I will never be able to distance myself from it. This makes me a target of anti-Semitism, which still thrives under hate and bigotry. It has horrifyingly increased in the last few years, as Jordan said, showing up in synagogue shootings, everyday harassment, attacks in kosher delis, or during holiday celebrations.
Now I'd like to speak to you about my family's history. I am both religiously and ethnically Jewish. I'd like to start with my great-grandfather Perry, who immigrated from Russia alone at 16 to the United States as he was escaping from pogroms, which were anti-Semitic gangs that were either government organized or not prevented. My grandfather, he lied to enlist in the Army Air Corps at the end of World War II at the age of 17 because he couldn't sit by and watch what was happening to Jewish people. He was always hesitant to speak on his time in the war because he faced a lot of anti-Semitism, especially from his commanding officer. My mother grew up in New York. It was easy to be Jewish in New York at the time. When she moved to California, she became the Jew in the room and was responsible for others' education. I have always been the Jew in the room. Growing up in Chico, it's a place full of microaggressions for Jewish people. I, from a very young age, have had to be in charge of the education of Judaism to others, but I am expected to know about Christianity, exactly like right now, how Maya and I are teaching you all. Thank you for listening.
Another unique thing about being Jewish is that most genetically Jewish families will find that branches of our family trees end at some point or another during the Holocaust, where family members went missing or died during the genocide of our people. Though the Holocaust itself extended from 1941 to 45, anti-Jewish propaganda and Nazi ideas started spreading in the 1930s and much before that as a result of Hitler's regime. I carry that trauma with me, and I'm aware of the hate that caused the mass slaughter of my ancestors because that hate is still present today. It carries through in the form of propaganda that was responsible for the death of my ancestors, the harassment of my relatives, and the anti-Semitism I experience constantly everywhere I go. The role of propaganda is to spread fear and manipulate the emotions of the public. Hitler and his Nazis used propaganda to create a fear and hate towards Jewish people. He harnessed stereotypes and lies to make us the enemy of the public eye. Ethnic stereotypes such as having a large nose, curly hair, lizard-like or witch-like features were among these stereotypes portrayed. These pieces of propaganda are largely responsible for the mass fear and hatred towards Jews. This is why it's so extremely inappropriate to use this propaganda for anything. Today, we would classify anti-Jewish propaganda as hate speech or a hate crime. The intention of use is irrelevant because the result is harmful, violent, dangerous, and horrifying.
Scapegoating of Jewish people. Jewish people for over a millennia have been blamed for events that they had did nothing to cause. For example, the killing of Jesus. Historians now say that this was the Roman government and the spread of the bubonic plague. Overall, Jewish people did not get as sick during the bubonic plague, so then they were blamed as if they started it. And for failing economies, this is specifically done by Karl Lueger, who was the mayor of Vienna, Austria for 13 years. He started a conspiracy theory that Jewish people created capitalism and controlled it, and therefore we were at fault when it failed. He was a great inspiration to Adolf Hitler, who used the same tactics to grow momentum for the Nazi Party. Many other awful events have come from similar conspiracy theories. There has been a large one which was created by the Russian secret police that Jewish people control the world. This is extremely harmful, all these scapegoating events, because Jewish people have been persecuted for misplaced harm throughout history. And Holocaust deniers use the fact that they believe that Jewish people control capitalism, the government, the world, to say that if Jewish people controlled the world, then we must have orchestrated the Holocaust for some sort of ulterior motive, which is incredibly harmful and anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitism is not believed because of these scapegoats. Many people think that if Jewish people control the world, then we control our oppression and we made it ourselves, which is gaslighting and extremely harmful. Holocaust analogies are a common thing that you see all around. They are dehumanizing to those that died, their families, and Jewish people today, and it trivializes Jewish pain. It also turns the Holocaust into a unit of measurement. And you see this often when the amount of Jews that died during the Holocaust is compared to other events or other people that died. It takes away the individuality of Jewish people, and it trivializes Jewish pain for a talking point, which is never okay. Our trauma is not for your talking points. Although Holocaust analogies are several steps above casual anti-Semitism, it is very important to know how you see it all around. In Chico, we see a lot of microaggressions. Some examples would be the Jew in the room, like I mentioned earlier. Another would be event on high holy days. Inspire is guilty of this because last year they placed Day on the Purple on Yom Kippur, which is the most important Jewish holiday. This one is a pet peeve of mine. Assuming Hanukkah is the most important holiday, it is not. Stop saying it's Jewish Christmas. It's not the most important. It's a minor holiday. And being forced to teach about holidays during classroom activities or other things, because we often know that if we don't teach about it, no one will, which that should not be our problem to solve. Another way of casual anti-Semitism that you can see all around is Jewcoded characters. Some examples would be the banker goblins from Harry Potter. They're goblins, which is already a bad start and is anti-Semitic inherently, but I don't have time to go into that. And they have Jewish features that ethnically Jewish people have, such as a large nose or beady eyes. They are described as greedy, materialistic, and untrustworthy, which is also very common anti-Semitic stereotypes that you can hear all around. And there's a Jewish history in banking. For a long time, Jewish people were barred from several job opportunities, but Christians weren't allowed to do money lending or banking in any way because it was seen as a sin. So Jewish people gathered in that profession. So it is extremely harmful to have characters with anti-Semitic features in a history where Jewish people are placed with and describing them with anti-Semitic stereotypes. Another common Jewcoded character that you can see really well the whole problem would be Mother Gothel. A good way to describe her is a dark curly-haired woman with a big nose who kidnaps a blonde Aryan child for her own greedy, selfish purposes that resemble a blood libel. Not cool.
So, what happens when somebody does use Nazi propaganda? First, take it upon yourself to learn about the topic at hand. What does the propaganda represent? What's its history? Then ask your Jewish friends and allies what is okay to say in this situation. Defend Jewish people by raising up our voices and creating a platform for us to speak. You can do this by harnessing your privilege as a non-Jewish person to spotlight Jewish voices. Never tell a Jewish person that their opinion doesn't matter in a situation like this. This is something called gaslighting, and it sidelines Jewish voices and takes away our humanity and normalizes and waters down our trauma. If a Jewish person says that something is anti-Semitic, take their word for it. Listen to what they say and take it upon yourself to learn from your mistakes immediately. You can also perform Teshuva, a Jewish way to acknowledge and atone for your mistakes, which Jordan will explain.
Teshuva, tzedakah, and tikkun olam. Teshuva is the protocol for apologizing for a mistake and how to forgive or not forgive someone. Teshuva means repentance, and there are several steps to Teshuva, which will vary depending on who you ask. I like to sum it up by saying, recognize. This is the first step. Recognize what you did and stop the action immediately. Number 2, verbalize. Verbally confess your sin and ask the person that you harmed for forgiveness. Number 3, express remorse. Express sincere remorse and resolve to not make the same mistake again. Number 4, right the wrong. Do everything in your power to minimize further harm. Number 5, resolution. Promise to act differently if the same mistake happens in the future and follow through on that promise. Tzedakah goes very well with Teshuva, and it means justice, and it is often done through charitable giving. It is a moral obligation for Jewish people to perform tzedakah, whether for themselves or for others around us. Tikkun olam also goes well with the other two. It means repair the world. Tikkun olam can be anything done by anyone that will fix something in the world and help improve upon it. Maya and I are performing Tikkun olam right now.
Antisemitism is not an obscure force. We can find it here in the US and here within Inspire as well. We all have to be proactive in defending Jewish voices, opposing hate, and being a sincere ally. Remember, believe Jewish people when they tell you something is harmful. Don't overstep your bounds in being an ally because ultimately, Jewish people will be the ones to face backlash. Be conscious about stereotypes and the intergenerational trauma that Jewish people carry with them. Learn from your mistakes and actively raise the voices of Jewish people. Work to educate yourself. Opposing hate is essential, and we can all start here within our community at Inspire.